Okay, now we're going to thread our machine. You should always use good quality thread. You should never attempt to use sewing machine thread on a quilting machine. Thread that you've had for years could be sun rotted, it could be old and brittle. We recommend several types of thread. This is Omni thread by Superior, but no matter what kind of thread it is, test it by trying to break it. And the harder it is to break, the more trouble-free quilting you'll have. Any kind of thread will work on this, but you'll have to adjust the tension very carefully if you have a weak, wimpy thread. Okay, you get your high-quality thread, you put it on the spool pin, you bring it straight up to the thread mast, you go around in through the big hole. Now this hole is made big so that you can put a piece of batting in there. Just stuff a little bit of batting in there, and that'll keep this thread from jumping around. The batting gives it a good damper to its motion. So you go through here, then you have a 3-hole guide here. So you go in the bottom hole, and then I just loop it around and go in again to the top hole. So now come in here and see how we did this. We're going in the bottom hole, we're coming around and into the top hole. So the thread just wraps around there, and this also will stop the thread from jumping around. Now while we're here, I want you to look at this other machine over here. It has a different type of arrangement in this area. This type of arrangement is used for stitch-regulated sit-down machines. There was a while where we shipped this on all of our machines, but we prefer just using the 3-hole guide. So as you can see right here, it's the exact same 3-hole guide as the other machine. Got 3 holes. This one also has a pre-tensioner and a location for an encoder device. So these you can choose to use if you want. The thing about threading a quilting machine is you can thread it many different ways. But every time you go through a hole, every time you go through a loop, you're adding tension to your thread. So if you're using a cheap, wimpy thread, you're going to want to use as little tension as possible. So what I would do is I would come from here, go just to the top hole, and from there I would go down to the main tensioner disc. That's if you're using a cheap, wimpy thread that's going to break. Okay? If you're using a strong thread, then I'd like you to do it this way. You can go in this hole, wrap it around, and in the top hole. So now we've got our thread under control. Now we bring it right down and go between the discs. See the 2 discs? You floss it between the discs, just like you floss your teeth. Get it between the 2 discs, then over the top of the check spring. This is the check spring. And then you bring the thread down and come up this hole from below. Okay, there you go. So as you can see, as I pull on this, you can see the check spring moving. That's what it does while it's sewing. So then we have this thread guide. This adds a little bit of tension to your thread. So if you are using wimpy thread, you'll want to skip this. But since this is Omni, it's very good thread. I'm going to go through there. Then I'm going to go from back to front through the take-up arm. See that? Everything is pulling nicely. Then I'm going to go back down through the last hole. And this is where you check your tension when your machine is all threaded. You grab the thread right here and you pull it. And if it pulls evenly and smooth, then you know there's no problem. Okay, so now we're ready to finish threading. This is our needle bar thread guide. There's a hole in the front of it. Here we go. Down the hole, grab it. So now the thread is coming clear from the spool all the way down through here. See how the thread goes? Over the check spring, around the tension discs. And as I pull on it, you can see the check spring moving. So it's easy to pull the thread, it's not binding up. I can pull it and it feels really good. Okay, so we've come through here. I've raised the needle and then you just thread the needle front to back. So I've gone through the eye, push it in. I use my little fingernail, but you can use a pair of tweezers or whatever. You grab the thread, pull it through, and now you're threaded. But see, you're on top of your hopping foot, so you want to go under it. And now you're ready. Okay, so now we've threaded the top. Now let's thread the bobbin. Okay, so here's your big size bobbin. You grab the lever and you pull it out using the lever. Okay, and then that's the last time you use the lever. You don't use the lever to put it back in. Okay, so now we have our bobbin here. It's an M-size bobbin. You can see down in the middle there, there's a black spring. It looks like a W. That's your backlash spring. Okay? It rubs on your bobbin case, so sometimes you might want to put a little tiny drop of oil on that W so that it smoothly rubs on there, the bobbin. Here's how you get the bobbin loaded. You hold the loaded bobbin like the number 9. That's no in German. So you just drop it in. And then you take this tail and you follow it around and it goes right in that slot. You see that slot right there? Then you go under the spring and now you're threaded. So then I like to set it on your hand and then you try to lift it up. So see, this is leaving my hand, and by a lot of people's account, that's too tight of tension. I like to set the tension a little bit tight. Here's how you adjust it. Little screw here with the ring around it. It's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Just tiny bits of turning will make a big difference. I'm just going to use my fingernail and lefty-loosey. So this is still on the tight side, but like I said, I like it a little bit tight. Another way of checking it is to put it on your hand and pull it out and see that it's turning freely. All right, so once we've set the tension, we've got a little pigtail right here. Can you see that pigtail? Little spring sticking up. That's for holding your thread. So now to put your bobbin back in, you have this little nipple thing, see right here? That has to be in this horizontal slot. If you put it so it's down in this slot, it'll break the needle off. If you put it way up in this top one, it'll break the needle off. I have no idea why bobbin hook makers have these other two notches in it, but you want to make sure you're lined up with that one. Then you push till it clicks and you're loaded. Alright, so you're all threaded now.